Good afternoon. Today is the 2nd of January and it's time for yet another very vague, not particularly interesting and probably quite boring vlog. The weather today isn't particularly conducive to very much, but never mind, it just seems to be what happens at this time of year. As a lot of other channels have been doing their retrospectives on 2022 recently, I was not necessarily thinking about whether I should do mine because, well, I've already done one. I did one before Christmas, but I was thinking about really this year and perhaps what sort of things I'd like to see on the channel in 2023. Believe it or not, even though I've been on YouTube for a number of years and I've done well over 1,200 videos, I haven't actually managed to scratch off all the cars that I've wanted to film ever since I first requested people provide me with their cars back all the way in about 2019, I think. So we're almost 4 years away from the first video I did requesting some viewers' cars. One thing to bear in mind, and I say this a lot, maybe you're not aware of this, maybe you are, but the majority of cars that you see on the channel are actually provided by people sending me an email, and my email address would have sort of turned up within the first 15 seconds of this video, and somebody just sending me an email saying, I have X car located in Y location, would you like to film it? And that's how actually I get the majority of the cars. Now, obviously people who have their cars on the channel before, often they realise they get something else, or they switch the car or something like that, and they get in contact with me again saying, no, I've got this. And there are certain people I can contact and say, you know, you don't have anything else, people who have rather larger car collections. But the majority still comes from people just out of the blue sending me an email and saying, I have a car like this, would you like to film it? The answer is normally yes, provided it's not got an engine that we can't talk about. But it will depend as to where the car actually is. I generally do get around everything. It's just a question of actually lining the logistics up, because if, for example, there's a car which is in somewhere like Northumbria, and you know, I live in Hampshire, Northumbria is an awfully long way from here. It doesn't make economic sense in any way to travel all the way to Northumbria to film, say, one episode of No Budget Reviews, and that's probably 350 miles from here, and then to come all the way back. It doesn't make any economic sense at all to do that. So with the videos you saw filmed in Edinburgh, the Kia Picanto, the Porsche 911 and the Porsche 924, those were all filmed on the same day. It was a very quick trip to Edinburgh to do that, and it's not something that will ever make the money back on, you know, the videos we made, but that's okay. You know, sometimes it's not necessarily a problem, but generally I have to sort of think about how the cars are sort of spaced out, and you know, if I can have, you know, 5 or 6 of them all in the same area and do all of those in one trip. And I did a very similar thing actually last month. I filmed a number of cars in the same weekend, and that's obviously the best. So I do tend to get around to stuff. Often it just takes me a while. It could take sometimes years. There's a particular car I'm waiting for that I requested over 3 years ago, I think it was, and the owner was just someone on the same Facebook group as I was, and he said I could film it, and twice I've got really close to filming it, but it just hasn't worked out in the end. Now that's obviously frustrating for some of you who want to see that type of car. So I think actually some of you do still want to see one of them, but it's even more frustrating for me. But sometimes you just have to be very patient. I can't stress that enough. You just have to be very patient about this kind of thing sometimes, and these things eventually do come. You just have to wait. So I do get round to things. It's just you know, sometimes the logistics don't line up. But all that sort of waffle is to say that there are certain cars that I'm absolutely desperate to film for the channel, and they're not necessarily cars that you think are, you know, would be right at the top of the list, but to me they are, because they're very exciting. One of them is a second generation Kia Rio. Now, if you can believe it, I've done all the other generations of Kia Rio apart from the second one. It's crazy, and you know, they're reasonably cheap second-hand cars in this country, and yet I can't find one for a review. This isn't High Peak Autos. I can't just go out and buy one just for one episode, no budget reviews. That wouldn't make any sense. So I have to rely upon someone to contact me and say I've got a second generation Rio. So that's one thing I'm definitely after. Another one would be the Chevrolet Apica. Now, the Chevrolet Apica is a fascinating car because they were only sold in this country for about 2 years, and they were sold with a 6-cylinder Porsche designed petrol engine. I would absolutely love to film a Chevrolet Apica with the Porsche designed petrol engine. I think it's a 2-litre. Totally unnecessary, and I know in so many ways, but just marvellous. And I can't believe as well, I haven't been able to, in the last 4 years I've been requesting cars to review, I've not been able to get hold of a Volvo 440 or a Volvo 460. I've done a 480, which was absolutely amazing. I really like that, but I want to do a 440 or a 460. Equally, I'd like to do a 360, specifically a late facelift 360. But again, I've seen them, but I just can't get hold of them. It's just absolutely crazy. You think that wouldn't be too difficult. These aren't the rarest cars, but it's like a 440 or 460 is very rare now. They're rarer than the 480s. It's just insane. I also want to get hold of a Suzuki Kozashi for sensible second-hand reviews, but they are again exceptionally rare. They're like stupidly rare. You know, they were only sold in this country, I think, for something like 2 years. I see them sometimes around, but I don't really want to kind of start leaving notes on people's windscreen and things like that. I think that's it's a bit too much, actually. Another type of car I want to get hold of is the last generation of Hyundai Accent to be sold in this country. There was only one model, I think it was a 3-door Atlantic it was called, that was sold between the discontinuation of the second generation Accent and the i30 coming in. I really want to get hold of one of those for review. I know I'm very strange, and this doesn't make any sense to anyone. I mean, you know, I know Ian Seabrook likes particular things, but I think in some cases my taste is even more particular, because it's not just really old obscure stuff, it's the sort of stuff that's a bit newer, it's really obscure. You'll note that a while ago I did a review of Fiat Tipo Saloon, and one of my viewers had brought it to a net specifically for me to review, which was just absolutely amazing. And I loved the Tipo Saloon. I mean, I didn't like it in some ways. It's not a great car in a vast number of regards, but I still really liked it. I'm very strange like that. You know, you can sort of keep the sort of Ferraris and Lamborghinis, things like that. I'm not saying no to having a go in one of those at some point, but I'd much rather try, you know, a Chevrolet Apica or a Chrysler Sebring. It's another car I really want to get hold of, the UK spec petrol powered Chrysler Sebring. There's just so many things like that I'd like to do, and the only way to sort of get hold of this stuff is really just asking all of you out there if you know someone who has one, or if you have one yourself, and that really is the only way. I don't really know how else to emphasise that, but my remit actually it's got reasonably large in the last couple of years. I mean, there's a car I'm closely following this weekend. It's a brand new model. I'm not doing True Jacket reviews on it because I don't think that'll justify, you know, doing True Jacket reviews on it, but it's a brand new car right the way through to, I don't know, I did a 61 Rover 100 as well. So as long as it's not a forbidden fuel car, and we will continue to keep that same policy on this channel of not, you know, talking about diesels, the remit's actually fairly open for lots of things. I don't expect to like every car I drive. Certainly the Nissan Juke, the Peugeot 207 and the City Rover were absolutely awful all in their own way. They were all terrible. I don't like every car I drive, but I like a surprising amount of really weird stuff, and I think a lot of you do too. So the email address is at the beginning of the video. It's also down in the video description, and please do send me, as it says in there, what sort of car you have. It's only if you want to see it on my channel. Obviously it's up to you whether you want to see it or not, and where you're based, and that's it. It couldn't be simpler than that. So you can be part of the history of the channel and you know, help to provide content for everyone to enjoy. Anyway, thank you ever so much indeed for watching. Channel members on the Rover 45 V6 and Seat Toledo membership tiers get to see the videos about the same day they're filmed. Others of you have to wait a few weeks, but obviously don't feel like you have to become a channel member. It's just something that some people prefer to do. Some people don't want to for whatever reason, or can't, and that's absolutely fine. I'd much rather you just watch videos and enjoyed them, and that is something that means the most out of anything. Thank you ever so much indeed once again. Lloyd Vehicle Consulting stickers, t-shirts and mugs are available by clicking the link to the Google form in the video description below.